Right, guys. Hello there. I'm just going to start now, uh, before even anyone starts watching, because you're going to play it back anyway. So I'm not going to wait for people. But I've tagged one friend of mine, James, and I hope that I'm be able to answer some of James' concerns in terms of Bitcoin. So I've tried to find a a title for what he has raised in one of his comments, and I thought, and the thing that I came up with was that maybe we can look at the adoption of Bitcoin. Hi Agnes, thanks for watching. So the comment read as follows, because I think I'd posted something about trust. I posted that Bitcoin is about trust, or it's a solution to the issue of trust. And let me just read the comment because it's going to make more sense once I've read it. So he says, it's been a year later and Mkoma Derek is still preaching the gospel of Bitcoin, blockchain, and that is about trust without a middleman. Meanwhile, the same year later, my employer still deposits my salary into a bank account and not a Bitcoin wallet. Also, meanwhile, the government has not made any efforts to migrate the population in general to a blockchain-based or Bitcoin-based payment and store of value system. It's business as usual with suppliers, retail shops, service providers still making and receiving payments via bank accounts and fiat currencies. The forex market still thrives and the rand is somewhat gaining ground on the US dollar. Okay, so in response to that, I thought I'll make a video comment instead of making a comment right where that thread was. The reason being that I think I can do a better job explaining it, like with a video, with voice, rather than typing. Since the internet now allows us to do this, I thought I might as well. Since Facebook now allows us to do live streaming, I thought I might as well. And just the fact that we are now able to live stream, okay, on Facebook and on social media is something that people are taking for granted. But I'll tell you that at some point, there was a time when nobody could imagine that with the internet, we would one day have social media. Social media was not even dreamt of when the internet was first conceived. So this is the same thing that's happening with Bitcoin, that there are going to be applications which we're not even aware of, which are going to come up because of innovation. If you look at the iPhone, for example, when it started, we had no clue what kind of applications people were going to build for the iPhone or for Android, for that matter. So it is developers who have actually come up with a lot of these innovations. So the same thing is going to happen to Bitcoin. And once you understand that Bitcoin is a protocol and not money, as most people think when they hear Bitcoin, they immediately think, they think of money, they look at the volatility, they look at the price of Bitcoin going skyrocketing and then coming down and maybe halving in value and maybe doubling within hours and all that. That has been happening. That has been the story of Bitcoin, but that is not the whole story. So we have to look at Bitcoin and try to understand what exactly it is, because Bitcoin is not just money, okay? So you say it's been a year later and still I'm preaching Bitcoin, blockchain. And actually, I don't think I've been doing enough preaching. I don't think I've been doing enough teaching of what Bitcoin and the blockchain actually is. it's mostly about decentralization, and I'm going to touch on a little bit of decentralization and what it means. So Bitcoin, when people hear Bitcoin, obviously they think of money, but Bitcoin is actually a protocol. So a protocol is just a set of rules which govern how transactions are conducted, or how things are carried out within the ecosystem. If you look at the internet is a perfect example of what Bitcoin is, because the internet is also a protocol. The internet is also a way in which information can be passed around on the network. Okay, so that's what the internet is. What is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is an improvement on the internet. What is the problem with the internet? The problem with the internet is that it did not. It opened up a way for people to pass information around, but at the same time, it exposed a lot of people. It exposed all of us to issues of privacy and stuff like that, and also to issues of trust, because it is difficult for us to trust someone or to trust transactions which are taking place on the internet. In fact, as we speak, or as I speak, there are people who still cannot use their phone to make mobile payments. Okay, they are still skeptical about the actual internet platform itself. So you're always going to have people who want to stick to the old ways of doing things. But what Bitcoin is doing is that it's solving some of the problems. And the problem now is that even some of those problems that Bitcoin is solving, people don't realize they have a problem. For example, we think it's normal or it's standard practice that a check should take 3 to 7 working days. Okay, there is no reason why that should be happening. Okay, the only reason it happens is because there is not trust in the system. So they try to avoid the double spend problem, which means that if I have, say, £100 in my bank account, or $100, and I write 3 checks of $100 each, if they are cashed at the same time, okay, you might find that the bank honors those 3 checks. Then after honoring the 3 checks, $300 has come out of the account, but there's only $100. So it's called the double spend, or it means that you can spend the same amount of money twice. And to avoid that, the bank has introduced these delays in the system, okay, to cater for, or to just to stop a double spend problem happening. Okay, so Bitcoin is a protocol, and it's just like the internet is a protocol. But the difference between Bitcoin, the protocol, and the internet protocol is that Bitcoin has got trust embedded within its architecture, okay, because it's decentralized, and because it's a blockchain, and because each block has got all the information from the previous block. And if you try to change a block, it's going to cost you a lot of money to change that one block. It's going to cost you a lot of money, and because you need to use a lot of energy. And also you will need consensus from all the Bitcoin nodes which are on the network. So everyone will need to agree to the fact that you're going to make a change, and it's going to cost you. So that alone makes it a system which is difficult for anyone to try to manipulate. It becomes very expensive to manipulate it. So what is the blockchain? It's just a public ledger. It's just a spreadsheet. Okay, but it's a spreadsheet which is different from, say, Excel or numbers or any other spreadsheet, because it's a spreadsheet which has got encryption embedded within it. So it's difficult to change, to manipulate. And you can manipulate Excel, the normal Excel. You can manipulate the normal any other normal spreadsheet, but you cannot manipulate the blockchain spreadsheet. So that's what it is. And some people think that the blockchain is the technology behind Bitcoin, but it's not. It's not the technology behind Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a protocol. The blockchain is just a public record, a public ledger of the transactions which are taking place. And that's what the blockchain actually is. So it's not the technology behind it. So what's the technology behind Bitcoin? Bitcoin is the actual technology. The entire infrastructure underlying Bitcoin is the technology. The applications which the Bitcoin is coming up with is part of that infrastructure, is part of Bitcoin. So I've said that a lot of people, they focus on cryptocurrency, on the cryptocurrency part of Bitcoin, as if it was the whole thing. But the cryptocurrency, or the Bitcoin that has got the price fluctuations, okay, that is just a tiny percentage. That is just an application. In fact, it's just the first application of Bitcoin, the protocol. So Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency, is just the first application and the most prominent of Bitcoin, the protocol. Okay, so that's all it is. It's just an application in banking. That's what Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency, is. And there are other cryptocurrencies besides Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency. So we've got to be clear on that. Then it's not just about Bitcoin, is not just about money, it's not just about the blockchain, but there are other applications. And these applications are due to something that we call the tokenization of value. So social media applications are coming up with applications like Rise, R-I-Z-E, which is live streaming. Okay, it's a live streaming based on a blockchain, which means that it tokenizes the value that you bring to the network by taking part in it. So I take part in Facebook live streaming. If Facebook was tokenizing this, it means that I would get some kind of a token, some kind of value, which can then be converted into a cryptocurrency, which can then be converted into fiat currencies. So Facebook is not doing that, but there are applications who are doing that. And we know that Mark Zuckerberg has spoken of how Facebook was going to look into the blockchain, which means I think that he's probably trying to find a way to fight off this new competition, which is coming from platforms like Rise. So the Rise platform, or DTube, or YouNow, or the Apex applications, which will soon be coming up, these protocols or these applications are actually going to pay. In fact, they've already started. They are paying people for taking part on the social network. So imagine a social network which is paying you. Imagine if Facebook was actually paying me for this. Then a lot more people will be live streaming, but a lot more people have not realized even the potential or what we can do with live streaming, what we can do with the current social media as it is. And if it's something that you want, if you want to use social media, like if you want to be on Rise, if you want to be on DTube, if you want to use Steemit, for example, this is the perfect training ground, so that when the time comes and you realize that you can actually get paid for your time, and this is what social media is doing. Facebook makes a lot of money by just us taking part in it. So us taking part on Facebook, it means Facebook, the value of Facebook is going up in terms of what the investor is thinking. So investors are putting more money into Facebook because you and me are doing live streaming, because you and me are discussing and spending the whole day, discussing topics on Facebook. So it means that we are a breeding ground for advertisers. It means they can sell us stuff because we are there. Okay, we are like a marketplace. Even Facebook has got a marketplace now, like an eBay, where you can post things, where you can sell your stuff, or you can buy stuff from your friends or from anyone on Facebook who is advertising. So we have the APICS, APPICS, and I'll be looking at their white papers and going through them one at a time, just so people can realize how broad this Bitcoin universe is. The Bitcoin is a universe. It's not just money. It's not just Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency. It's a lot. Okay. We also have Steemit, STEEMIT, which is actually a platform for blogging. Okay, you can post your text, you can post a video on it, and you can also do live streaming. Now, it is also based on a blockchain. It is also paying people for participating. It is paying people for liking. So if you like this video right now, if it was on Steemit, I would be getting paid. But because it's on Facebook, it is Facebook which is getting paid. And who is paying Facebook? The people that are investing in Facebook, the people who buy shares in Facebook, are buying shares because they know that Facebook is coming up with all sorts of interesting functionalities or applications like this video streaming. Okay, it's something which has already raised the value of Facebook. Okay, that's why they have included it on Facebook. Okay, so Bitcoin has applications in banking. Bitcoin has applications in agriculture. Bitcoin has applications in law. Bitcoin has applications in governance. Bitcoin has applications in even voting. In fact, Russia's 2018 election is going to involve Bitcoin at some level, the blockchain, where the blockchain is going to maintain the integrity of some of the information which they are collecting during, I think, the exit polls or something like that. Okay, they are going to be put on a blockchain so that the integrity of the results can be maintained. Okay, and so there's a lot of applications which are based on the blockchain, which are based on Bitcoin, which are outside money. Okay, which have been, which people are coming up with, just like with the internet. People came up with so many applications because the internet enabled that, because they understood the protocol, because they understand the rules. They're playing within the internet rules and were able to come up with websites, were able to come up with video streaming, and everything that we can now do on the internet is because we understand the protocol. Then when it comes to other applications like in banking, we have obviously Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency, but we have anything where record keeping is taking place, the blockchain can be applied, because the blockchain is a more authentic way of recording the data, because it cannot be manipulated. Okay, so we're removing the central authority, which is government, from handling some of these applications, some of this record keeping, so that it's more authentic. Okay, and that's what the blockchain is doing. Right, so he also says that his employer still deposits salary into his bank account. I'll tell you that right now, there's a Japanese company which has given its employees the option to receive some of their salary in Bitcoin. So while your company is not giving you Bitcoins, a Japanese company is already doing that. Then if you look at what other companies are doing right now, the tokenization of value, they are able to, in fact, what they're able to do is to give loyalty points. so that you can convert those into real cash. So that's just an introduction of what could happen if companies started tokenizing some of the participation that you are doing on while you shop with them. Okay, so adoption is still very low for Bitcoin, and I admit that. But adoption for fiat currency took over 400 years. It took over 400 years for people to accept that the gold and the minerals they were using for trade were suddenly a piece of paper called paper money or called fiat currency. So fiat currency has not always been there. And we have to look at Bitcoin as the evolution of money. So Bitcoin is the culmination of centuries of trying to come up with a way in which we can talk about value and we can trade value. And what Bitcoin has done is it has enabled us to be able to do that without having to trust the other person. It used to be that you needed to trust. And this is where, when you look at what we used to have as societies, we used to have small villages. And in these small villages, it was easy to trust everyone in the village. It was easy to know who to trade with. Okay, you could give somebody a product and then expect payment at some point. Okay, there was a level of trust because everything was sort of decentralized. Then when we came up with cities and we started meeting strangers, it became very difficult for people to trust strangers. So we came up with a system called paper money, which was part of it. And also we came up with institutions of trust like banks, because you could go to a bank, deposit money, and your friend could go to the same bank and withdraw that money. So this is what we had. We had to build institutions of trust. So if you look at churches, if you look at banks, if you look at governments, all these institutions were institutions or are still institutions of trust. But what has happened now, if you look at what happened in 2008, we had a problem because those institutions of trust have betrayed our confidence. So we are no longer as confident with banks as we used to, because those same banks have betrayed people. If you look at Zimbabwe, for example, in 2008, 2009, people just lost their savings. I know relatives who had kept money, who had been saving money with the post office savings bank for years. Every month they would put money aside for retirement and also just so that they could live for their families when they passed on. And this money just disappeared. And we know what happened. Money just disappeared from bank accounts. We had people with pension. They are not receiving enough. They are not receiving the equivalent of what they were paying when they were working. We've had a problem where monies can just be converted by banks from a local currency into maybe US dollars and vice versa. So those problems can be stopped by Bitcoin, because Bitcoin ensures that there is a blockchain of information, that the record is intact, that no one can manipulate it. So it means that what Bitcoin, the protocol, is doing is that it's trying to replace all of these institutions of trust because they can no longer be trusted. So that's the other point about Bitcoin. Now, he also says that, my friend, I'm just responding to a comment made by a friend of mine, by James. I hope you'll be able to watch this, James. But you also say the government has not made any efforts to migrate populations in general to a blockchain-based or Bitcoin-based payment and store of value system. Now, you'll be interested to know that Venezuela has introduced a cryptocurrency called the petrol. Okay, my network had gone down a little there, but I'm back. So I was just talking about Venezuela having introduced the petro. The petro is a cryptocurrency introduced by a country. So this is the first cryptocurrency which has been introduced by a country. We could call it a national cryptocurrency. And I have my own reservations about this cryptocurrency, this petro. It is pegged to the price of oil. Venezuela has got a lot of oil. I think they are the top producer of oil. And so they have pegged the price of their petrol to the price of a gallon of crude oil or something like that. The problem for me with that is that it is a cryptocurrency which is not decentralized because it's controlled by a nation state. And so it's like the same governments which have failed to manage fiat currency now trying to manage a cryptocurrency. So there's a problem there. Okay, and I think that's a discussion for another day. But the main point is that there is a country which has actually tried to introduce the cryptocurrency, and it's Venezuela. And it's not just Venezuela which is making those plans. Venezuela has actually introduced it, but there are also countries which have minerals, which have natural resources, which are also thinking of doing the same. I think we can talk about the petro. I've made one video so far on the petro, but I think there is more to learn. It's a case study because it's the first country which has done it. But whether a government is capable of introducing a cryptocurrency, that's a debate for another day. So not just Venezuela, but other countries are also thinking about it. And when you look at Western governments, they have teams which are working on cryptocurrencies. They have teams which are trying to understand the blockchain. They are consulting with people who know what the blockchain is all about, what cryptocurrency is all about. The Senate of Australia and I think Canada has held sessions with people who know what Bitcoin is all about, who are experts in Bitcoin. They've asked them questions. Some states in the United States are actually collecting their taxes in Bitcoin. They allow people to pay their taxes in Bitcoin. And they are a lot of things happening, a lot of experiments being done. And by the way, Bitcoin is not just for government to introduce. They can use the blockchain for things like the land registry, like what the UK has done. The UK has actually put the land registry on a blockchain, okay? And I'll do a video to explain what exactly they've done. But they've actually done that. They've actually taken they've actually put the land registry on the blockchain, which means that it becomes immutable. It becomes difficult for anyone to change the records. Then also, because Bitcoin is a solution to the problems that governments are facing, it's difficult for governments to take themselves out of power or out of business because of introducing the Bitcoin. So it'll be interesting to see how governments are going to survive because Bitcoin is trying to replace government actually. So then, James, you say it's business as usual with suppliers, retail shops, service providers who are still making. Right, the network had dropped again, but I'm back just on a few more minutes of this. Guys, if there are specific questions, please just ask in the comments, and I'll try to answer those. So you talk about suppliers, retail shops, service providers who are still making and receiving payments via bank accounts and fiat currencies. It's true that is happening. And I don't know how long it's going to take, but I can tell you that there's an airport in Australia. Is it Australia or I think New Zealand, one of those places, which is now accepts Bitcoin payments at the airport. Okay, so they're accepting that. Then you have some states in the United States who now accept taxes in Bitcoin. Then you have Amazon working on a digital currency. Then, so basically Bitcoin is not here to kill fiat currencies. Okay, fiat currencies are going to die a natural death. If you look at the evolution of money, you will find that previous iterations of money have died natural death because something new, which is more acceptable, has come up. So just like when paper money came around, it was a better alternative to carrying your gold around, okay, or your minerals around, or whatever form of payment you're using. Paper was a viable option, and so we started using paper. And then digital currency became an alternative. Like when you plastic money, if you're paying with your card, it's a better alternative than withdrawing £500 and carrying it around. So now people don't withdraw any money. They just use their card. They swipe everywhere. So even now for me, for example, I use my phone to make payments with Face ID. I double click on the button on the right of my phone, double click it, and then Face ID, and then I make a payment. Some people will never do that. Some people will never download an app, a banking app on their phone just to make transactions. They won't do that because they still don't trust the internet. So there's a problem of trust. And the problem is that these systems are centralized. Okay, so a bank is a centralized entity. Xbox, for example, all of these guys who have been hacked before, they are centralized entities. And being centralized entities means they are a target for anyone who wants to compromise them. Okay? If you look at banks, if you look at even government agencies, if you look at any entity now, which is a trusted entity, is also centralized, which means it can be compromised. A bank with £1 million or $1 million inside the bank is a target for anyone who wants to steal from the bank. But how do you steal 1 million Bitcoin? Because if they are distributed across 1 million people, it means you'll have to rob each and every one of the 1 million people to be able to access that Bitcoin. You cannot do that because it's decentralized, and you'd need to rob all those people simultaneously to obtain the 1 million Bitcoin. Okay, but if you walk into a bank, it's all there. We see these trucks being robbed in South Africa. Okay, I've seen trucks being robbed in broad daylight because they know the money is in there. But how do you rob 1 million people of £1 million, okay, or 1 million rands, if each person has just got 1 rand in a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin? Okay, it doesn't make sense. So that's why it is a better option, because it's decentralized, which means it's distributed across. And what people have, he was talking about a wallet, okay, an e-wallet or a Bitcoin wallet. When you have a Bitcoin wallet, there is no money in there. It's not like a physical wallet which has got money. What you have are keys to your Bitcoin. So what you have are keys to your Bitcoin. So what they call a Bitcoin wallet is actually just your keys to your Bitcoin, okay? That's only your keys to your Bitcoin. That's all it is. So yes, retailers are accepting Bitcoin. There are people who are buying coffee with Bitcoin. There are people who are buying air tickets with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is being accepted in a lot of places. A lot of retailers are doing that. So the adoption might be slow, but it's happening, okay? People are sending money via Bitcoin. People are buying coffee via Bitcoin. People are paying for services via Bitcoin. So it's not yet widespread. The adoption is still very slow, but it's coming up bit by bit. Okay. So thank you guys for watching. I've come to the end of what I think was an answer to the question which was posed by my friend James, and I decided to make a video comment. I don't know how long I've been here, but I've tried to cover as many of the points that he has raised as possible. And I think that it's important that we have this discussion about Bitcoin, because other countries are having a discussion on Bitcoin. They're having a discussion. And I think one of the problems we still don't have our own currency is because we still don't understand even fiat currency itself. Okay, we don't have our own currency, and it doesn't make sense that we can't even come up. We don't even know how to make our own money. So that's the first thing we should do. But while we're doing that, we at least need to understand where money is going as a value system. Okay, where is it going? It's going towards crypto. It's going towards tokenization. Everything is tokenized. Your value as an individual is being unlocked. So there's a lot of value that we can unlock with Bitcoin, but only if we understand it, not as a new form of money, but as a protocol in which money, cryptocurrency, is just one of the applications. And at the moment is the biggest part, but we could get to a point where the other applications have grown so much that Bitcoin as a cryptocurrency is not as big as it is now. Now it is the biggest because it was the first, and because there's a demand for it. There are people buying it. The reason the price of Bitcoin keeps going up, okay, is because there's a demand for it. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you, Wiseman, Dr. Wiseman. Thank you, Caston. Thank you, Mukoma Henry. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Dion. And thank you, Agnes, for watching. I will be back with another video just to clarify. Maybe there are questions concerning some of the things I've said here. Please just ask, and then I'll make another video.